So regardless of whether you're going to use this S5 projector in your backyard like this, or indoors like so, this native 1080p projector with 900 ANSI lumens is going to be a great option. Now, I've worked with DBPOWER before. They sent this over so I could make this video for you. We're going to go through all the top features and I'm going to give you plenty of footage to look over. So one of the best things about this S5 projector is how easy this is to set up. It has autofocus and there's no manual keystone or no manual focus wheel. There's a button if you need to manually focus located on the remote. Otherwise, this is really simple to set up because it automatically does the focusing for you. There are options also for automatic keystone correction, but if you need to, which is what I did to get the best picture in my theater room, you can also do manual keystone correction and you can also do the 4-point corner correction. It can do a pretty good job of just pretty much aiming this at any surface. You can aim this at a wall, aim it at a ceiling, aim it at your projector screen, and it does a really good job of kind of leveling out and autofocusing your picture for you. The autofocus is pretty much 100% accurate. I haven't had any issues whatsoever when getting that set up. But if the keystone, like I said, you're putting this in a more permanent location, you do have those manual controls still to get the best picture set up. So you don't have to hook this up directly to the internet. Depends on how you're going to set this up. If you're going to be using one of the two provided HDMI ports to hook up maybe a Roku player, Fire Stick, something like that, then you can pretty much just have that connected to the internet. If you already have one of those devices set up, you can just plug that right into the HDMI port and it's going to be plug and play. There's also an AV jack. You have two USB-A ports as well, and you got a 3.5mm audio port. So that's where you can hook up an aux cable to hook it up to a speaker manually that way, get that physical connection and have no latency. Those USB ports are also really nice because you can power whatever device you have hooked up to. So if you have a Chromecast or a Fire TV stick, you can hook that up and get that power directly from the projector without having to plug that device into an outlet as well. So you'll get the remote control with this too. You'll need two AAA batteries for that. But as I said, you got volume controls on there. You do have the focus correction and everything too. That's going to allow you to change your sources. You can go from the projectors menu over to your HDMI 1, HDMI 2. So it's really handy. And the other nice thing is they do give you an HDMI cable. The HDMI on here does have CEC support to control multiple devices with one remote. So I'm not going to get too much into that, but if you know how to do that and kind of what that is available. This does have Wi-Fi 6, however. That allows for up to 9.6 gigabytes per second max speed. This also does have kind of dual channels, 2.4 and 5G bands. This was really easy to hook up, and then that's going to allow you to do things like kind of AirPlay or Android casting directly over to this device. Quick note on that though is you're not going to be able to do any copyrighted apps, no Hulu, Netflix, Prime Video, any of that stuff wirelessly through your phone over to the projector. So I always recommend for the best use case, just hook up a Roku player, hook up your Amazon TV stick, your Google Chromecast, those type of devices. That's going to be the easiest. You can just use that device's interface and then you can use that to access all of your streaming app subscriptions and everything on there. On the main menu though, there are iOS and Android casting options on there. So you can click that and you can see these directions they give you. It was super simple for me though. Using AirPlay, I was able to see the DBPOWER came up right away. Even when I was on like YouTube myself on my phone and everything, it came up and recommended at the top, because it sees if you're on that same network, it's going to recognize that and ask if you want to connect to it. So that's great for like sharing photos, maybe some of your own personal videos and things like that. So this also has a sealed optical engine. So basically those internals are kind of like dust proof. They're not going to let that stuff get in there. That's been a problem with some of the budget projectors in the past where you might even, upon shipping, I've got some before that have a little bit of dust inside and you can see that on the picture and everything when it projects. So with this, it's a sealed optical engine. You're not going to have to worry about that. As far as the sound, this has Bluetooth 5.2 and it's bi-directional. So that means you can send the audio from the projector over to a speaker. And you can also send it back, say if you're like hooked up on your phone, you're playing music, you can use this as a Bluetooth speaker and send it from your phone over to the projector. So I did try that out and it sounded pretty darn good actually. I was able to get this up pretty high. It has two 10-watt hi-fi speakers on here. Putting the audio up all the way, I didn't have any issues with any distortion or rumbling until I got all the way up to like the top 5% of the audio. So it sounds pretty darn good. If you're going to be using this inside regular sized room, I would say in a house or something like that, these internal speakers are pretty darn good. You're going to be able to use those if you want and you don't want to hook up to anything else. If you're going to be using this maybe in more of like a backyard setting, or you're going to play this in like a gym or something like that, then you're going to want to maybe hook it up. There is a 3.5mm audio out. That's going to give you no lag. So if you just hook that up to another type of speaker, you can do that. Otherwise, you can't hook up by Bluetooth. Sometimes there's going to be a little bit of latency though with that Bluetooth. So As long as that's not going to bother you too much, or especially if you're using it for music, it's not really going to be noticeable. But for video, you may have a little bit of latency. This does have dual fan cooling. You'll see on here, I used my decibel meter and I was basically a few feet away at first, and I went to about 5 feet away, you'll see. But these are the numbers I got. They say that they rate this about 30 decibels. The other thing is they have this 3D bass cavity diaphragm that's pretty unique on the back. It's kind of got this passive little woofer on the back there you can see. And what that does, it's supposed to kind of give you a little bit more bass. It's still not going to be quite as good, in my opinion, as hooking up an external speaker to it, but that's pretty neat. That's the first time I've actually seen that on one of these budget projectors. So in my testing here, I did a little bit of casting. I hooked up my laptop to this. I hooked up my Amazon Fire TV stick to this. So you're going to see footage from all those things. So here's some of the footage here. You can take a look while I'm talking about this, but this does support Ultra HD 4K video decoding. So that supports H.265 at 4096 times 2176 pixels at up to 60 hertz. And again, that's decoding. This is a native 1080p projector, so that's what it can decode. It's basically going to downscale it. What you're seeing is going to end up being native 1080p output. That's pretty much the norm and the best you're going to get in any of these budget projectors. And 1080p, especially at the big size you can project this, looks really nice. The other nice thing for setup purposes is you can zoom this 0 to 100%. So you can't obviously make it bigger, but if you need to scale it back, and I actually did in my setup inside my theater room, I basically went like 2% down, and it helped to bring it off the wall just that little bit and back onto my screen only. That is a nice setup feature. So this does have a 5-inch inner LCD panel, so that is a little bit larger than sometimes your typical 4 and 4.5-inch options that are on the market, kind of in this budget range. So that allows you to get a little bit of a bigger projected image while still maintaining picture quality, and that kind of allows for that 900 ANSI lumens, and this does have a 110% color gamut as well. So that kind of helps just with a little bit better overall picture quality. And I'm super impressed with the picture coming out of this. Again, being a budget range projector, there's no blown out colors or anything, and everything was pretty sharp. The one thing I want you to note here is as I show you some of this text, the biggest thing that I've noticed over the years testing these, as I've gotten away from the manual keystone correction and manual focusing, these ones with the auto focusing and auto keystone correction tend to have a better sharpness over the entire image. What would end up happening before is if you use that manual keystone correction at all, you would end up either blurring the bottom edge of the screen, the top edge of the screen. There are times then where it'd kind of be like the left or the right side would be. So if I was looking at like a Netflix menu, for example, the thumbnails in the middle would be nice and crisp and sharp. And then as you got over to the edge, you'd start seeing a little bit of a blur there. So if you're typically just watching video, it's not something you'd necessarily notice, but if there's something with a lot of text in it, or you're using it maybe for some web navigation, PowerPoints, things like that, that's definitely something that you would see. So like with this projector, for example, I don't see any soft parts of the image. When I had this set up, it goes through that auto-focusing and everything, then I didn't have any issues whatsoever with any parts of my image being out of focus or soft. Going through menu navigations, whether that's going to be Netflix, Prime Video, Hulu, all of that kind of stuff, your text on here with that native 1080p is going to be nice and crisp and sharp. And as I've said before, this image is fully in focus, so you're not going to have any issues whatsoever with navigating through those. I do think this has pretty accurate color representation. I've tested this on other projectors. I typically use this one montage of videos kind of over and over again too, so I kind of get used to that, and I see this on other budget options as well. And the color on this is really nice. One of the things I often see is some of the really saturated colors and on flowers and fruits and things like that in some of these images. Some of the oranges, the reds, things like that tend to be kind of overblown and oversaturated. And here, this did a really good job of giving a good, accurate color representation without doing that. You'll see in some of these other shots here too, you get a good amount of detail. Like I said, with this one, there's no areas that are out of focus. Everything's nice and sharp, and I love the way this looks. One thing of note with this projector is Dolby Audio is not supported. So that is seen in this budget projector range. I actually have made a video on that in the past. One easy thing you can do then is you go into your sound settings, go to display and sounds, click on that Dolby Audio, and then flip that over to off, and it'll use a different type of audio. So if you're using this and for whatever reason, whatever device you have hooked up to it is not playing any audio, check that. That is probably about 95% chance what's going on. You can also use this for productivity. You can use this for, it has its own little office suite included. So I'll show you a little bit of that here. You can get into kind of like Word type document stuff, and it's got a reader for that. You can get into Excel type files. You can even go through and show PowerPoints on here. So you can hook up more of your physical media to this as well. So if you want to use this for work and play, you can actually do that with this projector. If you'd like to pick one of these up, there's going to be an affiliate link in the comments and description. Please like this if you found it helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.